Hey everybody, this is TJR. This is something I've never really talked much about, but I have always in my lifetime, from time to time, had to deal with bouts of melancholy, unexpected and unexplainable sadness, verging on depression sometimes. When I was much younger, these bouts were a lot stronger. As I've grown older, I have learned more how to tap into positive thinking. And also, my older self knows from experience that these bouts of melancholy, sadness will pass. And so it's best not to dwell on it too much. But sometimes it can seem overpowering. And when I was younger, like I said, it could be very severe. It could go on for a long time. As an adult, these bouts can be fairly brief sometimes. They can sometimes last the morning, maybe the evening. And tonight, I felt one of those bouts of melancholy. And I felt myself thinking, why am I doing this channel? What's the point? I mean, really, what's really the point of it all? I can remember in my younger days, I would feel that way about being a musician. I would say, why are you doing all this? Why are you even bothering? What's the point? And of course, whenever I get that way, Superfan always tells me to just shut up. Don't talk that way. And which does me some real good, I think, coming from her. But I felt that way, and I decided, okay, you're feeling this. It's really hard to break out of it and get out of the spunk. Let's go take a walk. I put on my noise-canceling headphones, went outside, and very cool night out tonight. Nice, lot of very invigorating wind as well. And I went out there, started to take a walk. I began to listen to Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys, which might seem like an obvious choice, but then for me, seemed like kind of an unusual choice that I picked it to listen to. And I may have mentioned this in other videos, but I'll say it here again, just in case you need the context. The Beach Boys were not a band that I was particularly fond of during my teenage formative music years. I think it was the surfer image. I just had a certain negative prejudice about that. As I grew older, I began to really understand and respect the musical brilliance that is Brian Wilson and his work both as a solo artist and as with the Beach Boys. In fact, I could probably say I was more ingrained in his work as a solo artist than with the Beach Boys. Pet Sounds, I remember a long time ago being an album that I really didn't think much of. This was back when I didn't think much of the Beach Boys. And I remember reading an interview with Paul McCartney where he talked about how it was one of the most important albums of his life and how it inspired Sgt. Pepper. And at that time, I was probably a young man now in my 20s. And I thought to myself, if it's good enough for Paul McCartney, it ought to be good enough for me. And that's when I decided to try to listen with fresh ears. And I listened to Pet Sounds and realized that there were some really great songs on it, but I didn't think it was like a great album. I just thought, yeah, it's a pretty good album, and there's some really great songs on it. And of course, as time wore on, I began to admire and respect and learn to really appreciate Brian Wilson as a musician, a songwriter, a producer, and again was probably more into his solo stuff than the Beach Boys stuff. And tonight I put on Pet Sounds. I just pulled it off of Tidal, and I listened to it, and I heard it in a way that I'd never heard it before, and it sounded more beautiful than I'd ever remembered hearing it. It had this depth to it, this deep depth to it, and yet it also had this brightness to it. that I don't think I'd ever heard before. Now, maybe it's because it was the first time I've played it on Tidal since everything's gone to high res. As you know, the streaming services, they're all offering high res streaming. Tidal, for a long time, was the only streaming service that had high resolution streaming. Apple Music and Spotify didn't, but you had to pay extra for that. I just paid for the standard service. You paid like $20 a month for the high res. It's $10 a month, $9.99 for the standard. But of course, once Apple started offering high resolution streaming at no additional cost, Tidal had no choice. They basically said, okay, if you're on high res, it's now just $9.99 a month. And if you weren't on the high res, they called it hi-fi, you're now graduated to hi-fi with no additional charge. And maybe it's because it's the first time I've heard it through their high-res streaming service, but there was just a deepness and a brightness to it that I felt like I'd never heard before. And I wasn't really even paying attention to the lyrics. I was just hearing it as just the music. And the vocals were just part of that. They were just one more instrument. And I was just hearing it as this orchestration of music. And I'd never heard it sound so beautiful and nuanced before, and it really just lifted my soul up and lifted my spirit. And as my walk was coming to an end, I thought, why don't you just pull up the copy you have on your music, which is, Apple, what used to be called iTunes. I import all my CDs and any vinyl that I digitize, I import that all into my Apple Music. My physical music library. I have my cell phone, of course, has a huge amount of memory, and so I have all my entire collection is in there. I'm not streaming it; it's on the drive. And I compared it, and I thought to myself, "Wow, this Tidal streaming version is way better than the CD that I imported." I think it's time to get a better version of the album. Anyways, though. Maybe it's time to get it on vinyl. But yeah, I was just listening to it, and it just lifted my soul. It lifted my spirit. And suddenly my view of Pet Sounds has changed. I mean, I always thought it was a pretty good album with a couple really excellent songs. But tonight I heard it and thought it was an album filled with audio landscapes, beautiful audio landscapes. Some of these take you into the mountains, some of these take you into the ocean, and that's the best way I can describe it. It was just all these beautiful audio landscapes, and it lifted my spirit, it lifted my soul, it lifted me out of that melancholia, which I knew, of course, would end eventually. Thankfully, sooner than later. Anyways, though, I felt so moved by this experience that I just felt like I had to say something. So I'm doing that right now. And anyways, though, I've never really shared anything like this before. But what was the thing that really shifted me out was the music and hearing the way I heard it. And I don't think I'm ever going to hear Pet Sounds the same way again. And I think I'm going to pick it up on vinyl pretty soon. Anyways, I just wanted to share that. If you've had a similar experience, please share yours in the comments. And as always, if you like what I do, click like, click subscribe, smash that bell notification icon. Just do the YouTube stuff. And that way you don't ever miss a video. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you listening right now. And y'all take care. Hope you all stay safe and healthy. Bye-bye.